Hello, and welcome to the Momentum Ministry Partners podcast. This podcast is designed to provide that momentum in our God-given roles of leadership as we partner together to equip today's Christian leaders for tomorrow's opportunities. Thank you so much, and we hope you enjoy this episode.
Hello, and welcome to the Momentum Ministry Partners podcast. I'm Eric Miller. I'll be your host in this episode, in this conversation. Today we have with us Todd Shoemaker. Todd is the pastor of student ministries at Grace Church, the Bath campus here in Akron, Ohio. So Todd, welcome back. I know last year, I think in season 1, we had you on for an episode. Yeah. Actually, do you remember what we talked about?
Topic? No, I don't.
I don't either. I might have to go back and look.
I'm confused. Yeah,
I always do this to myself. Like, I randomly think of like something that gets stuck in my head and then I can't like pull it back. So
it's all good. Well, it's good to be back, Eric.
There
Thanks for having me back and really looking forward to this conversation today.
Yeah, man, you're actually no newcomer to the Momentum world. Many of our listeners, or if you're watching on YouTube, are familiar with kind of who you are just because you've been around Momentum Youth Conference. You've I think you said 13 years you've been the youth pastor here, which congratulations, man. You're like a unicorn in youth ministry, setting trends and records. And, I think the average lifespan of a student ministry pastor is still like 18 to 21 months, which is terrifying if we're honest.
Yep.
So good job being engaged
Thanks,
for
man.
that long at the same church, in the same role. But you've been bringing students to Momentum Youth Conference for a long, long time. Way back in the day, we actually got to lead a Momentum travel team together. That's like a little
It's a throwback,
fact.
Eric. Yeah,
It is. That's a long time ago. Pre-wives, before kids.
Yep.
Oh man,
A lot has changed. A lot of life has taken place between.
I
when we
think
did
back to that
now.
summer, and it was so much fun.
Yeah.
Just getting to like invest in these high school students. To our listeners, if you're not familiar with Momentum travel teams, it's February. What an amazing opportunity to equip your students to have a ministry mindset. But one of the things that I love is that it's a phenomenal leadership development, not just for the high school students, but actually when I look back, like it was for us too.
100%. And
Like-
it provided tools for me that I still play out in ministry today. So you're right, man. Spot on.
So super fun. And then I know you've taken your students to the Urban Center, both in LA and in Philadelphia. So thank you for that. And Todd, you're now like what we're calling our marketplace guinea pig.
Yeah.
So we're launching Momentum Marketplace. If you've not heard us talk about Momentum Marketplace, we're super excited. We're slowly kind of rolling this thing out. But it's for those students that like they want to like love Jesus and grow in their relationship with him and serve the local church, but maybe they're not called into full-time vocational ministry. They're like, Todd, I love you, but I'm not trying to do what you do.
That's right. And I actually look forward, we'll press into that here in a little bit, but the marketplace, I tell you, we're hitting something. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how God uses this part of the ministry within our local ministries in our students' lives.
Yeah. So just kind of the whole reason I wanted to bring that up is to provide some value and credibility to you that you actually know what you're talking about on our topic today of preparing students for life after high school. But B, you are a ministry partner of Momentum. You've done a great job throughout the years of investing in your students and helping to come alongside parents and their families to help them really like learn and adjust and prepare for a lifelong pursuit of their right relationship with Jesus and to serve his church. So that's amazing. Thank you for what you do and for being a guest on our conversation today.
Dude, my pleasure, man. Thanks for having me. It's good.
It's crazy, Todd. We've talked just kind of actually we got to have lunch even yesterday, but offline we've talked about how challenging it is when sometimes as a youth pastor, a student comes to you and they say, hey, Eric, Todd, I want to go into full-time vocational ministry. I want to work for the church. I want to serve the Lord. And that's their role. Now, as youth pastors, we're like, game on.
Yeah, right.
Love that. How can we help you we can easily think of like the track to run on
Mm-hmm.
because we had that for us when we were growing up.
That's right.
And yet for the students that are like, well, I think we sometimes like make students who don't want to go into full-time ministry feel lesser than.
That's right.
Students, you're actually not a lesser than Christian, and youth pastors, if parents, if you're listening to this, like they're not lesser than Christians if they're not going into full-time vocational ministry where they're going to be employed by the church. Talk about that, just what you've seen over the years.
I'll be honest, this is probably one of the things that have probably kicked me the hardest, right? So as a pastor who has worked with middle school and high school students for many years, we've gotten pretty good at creating a pathway for students who feel called into vocational ministry.
Yeah.
We can give them practical experience as they're coming up through the program. But then looking even post-graduation, hey, we offer an undergrad degree through Grace College.
Yep.
We can offer experience through internships and residency. So there's just this like easy pathway to walk somebody who is going to respond to the call to vocational ministry. The flip side of that, if I had a student come up to me and said, Todd, I want to go into the business world. I want to go into the medical field, all these things. I look at them and I'm like, man, that's awesome. But I pretty much respond, well, good luck. I'll be praying for you.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I don't have resources. I don't have the tools to be able to walk alongside of them. But here's the kicker. The majority of our students that we work with in our ministries, they're going to be going into the marketplace, not vocational ministry.
Correct.
And so to be able to have tools to create language and resources to come around our students who do feel called into the marketplace, which I do also believe is a calling, I want to be able to support them, encourage them, and pastor them well.
Yeah, we recently had Katie Cole on the podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And she talked a little bit about that, like primary calling versus secondary calling. So if you're listening to this episode right now and you're like, what are they talking about? Go back and listen to that episode when you're done with this one.
Please.
But you know, those are language that we're trying to just use as a resource to help equip the church, and even for pastors to like change, maybe tweak our perspective on how we view what we do and why. So our goal for this conversation today, Todd, we really want to help pastors and parents just think about how do you prepare students for life after high school. We know it's coming.
Yep.
For most.
Yep.
We know that they're going to graduate. We know they're going to leave our student ministry.
Yep.
For some, they're going to leave our church even. They're going to move to a new town, a new location. They're going to go to college. Maybe they're going to get a job. Maybe they're going to whatever. But we know that's coming. And so to like that, I always thought like in student ministry was a huge advantage because you can change and shift your thinking. And so if I know that if you're a pastor at a church and you know that like, hey, in 4 years, somebody in our congregation is actually going to move away and they're going to leave, how would you plan your like the things that you would do, the developing leaders side of all of that? It would change. It would speed up that process. So in this sense, like, you know, that students, you know, we're not talking children's ministry, we're talking teenagers, right? Students in high school that as they prepare to go off to college, we all know the world that we live in right now. College is a crazy place right now.
Yep.
There's a lot of stuff going on in the world. There's a lot of things that are competing for our students' time and attention. And so how do we like know of that and yet prepare our students well for this conversation? So that's our goal today.
Dude, let's press in. That's good.
We just want to give you some tips and tricks. So Todd, let's kind of think through juniors and seniors in high school. As you look at your ministry and your students, what are some of the stressors? What are some of the pressures that are on them? You even mentioned recently on a Momentum Pro cohort trip we were on that you and others that were speaking into this, like students that are juniors and seniors especially are easily disconnected from student ministry. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. Well, as I think about working with our juniors and seniors, when we talk about the stressors that they face, the pressures that they're going to get, I actually do think it varies depending on where you're located.
True.
You know, so we're outside of Akron, Ohio, right? It's a pretty busy area. Kids are involved in a lot of things. And so the pressures that we see our students face, like test scores and education is a really big deal.
Yeah.
So if it's finals week, buckle up, our ministry is going to be ghost town, because literally they're home studying. So there is this significant pressure that they face with their education, which is good. But then there's this pressure that they also face that I think they get from potentially home, their teachers, wherever. It's like, what am I going to do next? And you have to have it figured out before leaving high school.
Right.
What is my career path? Where am I going to invest the next 5-10 years of my life? It has to be all figured out, which I don't think is true, right? I think it's okay to have a direction,
right?
But man, God works in crazy ways. And so to be able to give him room to work that way. So knowing what's next in the career is a big one. The other one that we see a lot of is the value and the importance of relationships to them. So a lot of our students do graduate and move out. Some will stay local. They'll go to Akron. They'll go to Kent State. That's close. But a lot of students will leave where they're multiple hours away.
Right.
But their relationships are so important to them. And so we find their junior and senior year, they're like all about investing as much time as they can into those relationships, knowing that they're most likely going to change after they leave. And so that's a big pressure that we face that way as well.
Todd, on that academic side and like even preparing for school, I know that some of that can, as you mentioned, can come from mom and dad.
Yeah.
Some of it can come from even their teachers if they have a good teacher that they value. Some of it maybe comes from like wanting to get into the school that they'd like to go to. But talk a little bit, like kind of give us, for those of us that aren't in the like trenches of youth ministry every day, like what goes on in a student's mind that they would put such pressure on themselves?
For sure. Well, can I just premise this conversation about education? It's a good thing.
Sure.
Right? Being serious about your education, getting good grades, that's all good. I'm not knocking on that at all. But I do think that there is a balance that is necessary when it comes to education. Right. And so these students place this, I think, unnecessary pressure on themselves, because if they don't succeed now, as small as a grade on an exam, that it's going to have long-term effect on where they're going with the rest of their life. And I think, as a parent, my kids are much younger, but as a parent, I see myself interacting with my kids based off of things that I experienced and I did when I was younger. And so we want the best for our kids. That's good.
Yep.
But I do think we put this unintentional pressure for our children to succeed and for our students to feel that, man, if I mess up here, I'm not going to be able to succeed down the road, or it's going to have long-term effects of where I'm going. So I see that coming to be. I actually don't think it's purposefully negative, but I do think that it's important to be aware of that this is a pressure that our students are carrying.
Yeah. And some of it's probably when you back up and think about it, it's probably just human nature. Like we all want to succeed. We all want love and acceptance. We all want to be excellent in what we're doing. So that's part of our DNA. And yet I think for those of us that are adults that are investing in these students, we love and care about them. I think it's important to just be aware of that. Like, and every student is different, right? You all know the students that like, they want to get straight A's. They
it's great.
They'll lose their mind if they get less than like 100%.
Yeah.
I actually had a student like that once, and I bribed her. I said, I'll pay you $50 if you get a B in any class. Now she really genuinely needed to just like be okay with failing. And then you have the students that they're like, I don't care about school at all.
Yeah.
And you probably need to motivate them and encourage them. And
100%. Because think about it. I mean, we can idolize anything in our lives. And so success and not being able to do anything less than straight A's, right? We're putting that on a pedestal. And it's going to, the amount of energy that we put into that, for our students to put into that, well, we only have so much that we can offer. And so something else is giving. And so I think it's a evaluation, a balance.
Okay, so
we help them process.
In this mindset then, as adults who love these students, how can we help avoid maybe the pressure or even be aware that maybe we're actually creating pressure on these students? Talk about that a little bit, just even in terms of your perspective in your ministry.
Yeah, I think just having an awareness and understanding, hey, what is going on in their day-to-day life, and meeting them where they're at.
Yeah.
and being willing to have a conversation. So, to have a conversation about pressure with a student might not be easy.
Right.
They're not going to come just straight out and start sharing about it, but to know that they have resources available, whether you're a youth pastor, a coach, or a parent, to like have that as an open door for a conversation with them. It's like, hey, you know what? Just let's talk about the things that you're facing, these pressures that you might be experiencing. So I think that's super important. I also think we need to evaluate our view of success for them as well.
Yeah.
Like I said, I think for some, I see the parents, and I'm not trying to be direct, but at the same time, I think our parents try to live through our students sometimes based off of their past, the decisions they've made. And so we want what's best for them. That's a great thing. And so we almost overcompensate and we try to protect them in so many areas so that they succeed.
Right.
Because maybe we didn't in that area or whatever it might be. I'm just
that plays out a lot
broad.
of different ways for sure. And I think just that's such a good point, because like when we know on the surface that their lives are about to change, students aren't, they're not, probably most are not going to articulate that.
Yeah.
They're probably not going to sit down and say, hey, mom and dad, hey, pastor, I'm nervous. I'm feeling stressed because I know I'm going away to school and I'm putting all this pressure on myself. It would be very rare that a student could like actually articulate that.
Yeah.
But they feel it.
Sure.
It's very much a part of their like daily lives, and they may not be able to like pinpoint or put their finger on it. And yet that's where for us as adults to just know that exists and help. I love what you're saying, like to be a resource. Hey, we value, I can look back on my times in student ministry where like I would put time and pressure on like, you've got to be at this student leadership meeting. It's really important. We're planning the retreat or whatever it was. And I'd get frustrated if they didn't come. And because I'm only looking at my thing.
That's right.
And I'm not looking at like, okay,
Guilty.
it's finals week or and so to shift perspective and help kind of just enter their world. It's okay. To know that.
Eric, and I know I'm talking a lot about parents, but I mean, I'm guilty of this as a pastor. So I will put so much focus and attention at times on our programming where it's like, where are our students? Oh, it's finals week. Well, they could take a break, And I'm like, man, that is not the right thinking. And so I don't want to prioritize our programming so much because that is only going to add fuel to the fire of the pressure that they're facing. So I'm trying to succeed outside of church, right? And now I'm feeling this pressure from my pastor that I have to be at everything. I have to serve. I have to volunteer. And so we also have a role to play in this as pastors as well.
And maybe it's just something as simple as like, hey, we're gonna have all of our adults that night at your youth ministry during final weeks text the students that aren't here and say, praying for your finals.
That's right.
I don't know. Find some unique way to encourage them.
Yep. Spot on.
So Todd, like as we dive a little deeper, let's kind of press into this. Like, what are you guys doing to prepare students for life after high school, both strategically within your ministry, in that relational environment space? Kind of walk us through that. Like, what's your plan? What have you guys done well? What could you do better in maybe?
So recently we've come to this, aha moment where if you're a pastor and you're listening to this in youth ministry, you would agree and recognize that we have these bridges built into our student ministry. So it starts 5th grade into 6th grade, whatever your middle school bridge is.
Right.
You have your middle school into high school, 8th, 9th grade, depending on your school system. And then you have this bridge that also goes from graduation into college/young adult. Right. Those are the natural bridges that we would work with. We put a lot of attention into those to help connect the students to the next chapter of their life.
Yeah.
I think we've identified another bridge that lies within our ministry, and it's actually that sophomore year into junior year. There is something about that shift, and I call it the bridge of independence, because in that stage, what's happening is they're getting their driver's license. Students are beginning to experience some more freedoms in life, responsibility as well. But there is something to that bridge that we as a ministry are really trying to wrap our heads around to best lead our students into that junior, senior chapter of their high school career. Because as you think within ministry, we offer week-to-week programs, serving opportunities, all of these things. Students are no longer getting dropped off by mom and dad.
Right.
They're now making the choice.
Right.
Am I going to show up at youth group or not?
Yeah.
You think about now it's social gatherings. I mentioned to you relationships are important. And so, okay, am I going to choose to go to that program on Wednesday or Sunday night or go to church on Sunday morning? Or am I going to go be with my friends?
Right.
Am I going to this event now? So that bridge is something that we're focusing in on to try to understand. And I'll be the first to tell you we have not mastered it. It is a work in progress to where we're at. So that is one piece that we're like, hey, let's identify that there is something there to help these students connect into their junior and senior years.
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing that we're focusing, and you mentioned marketplace earlier. The majority of our students are pursuing occupation or education outside of vocational ministry.
Right.
And we as a ministry really want to focus in on that. So I've had the privilege of being the guinea pig. We've been piloting this Momentum Marketplace portion of the ministry, and it's fantastic. And it has opened my eyes to a world that I just have not been pressing into as a pastor, and I need to be. And so what Marketplace is doing for us is coming alongside of our students to help them see their primary, secondary calling, which is mind-blowing, where, wait, God could, call me into an occupation that isn't vocational ministry? Yes, because our primary calling is to be a Christ follower and to be locked into who he is. And then using who he's created us to be, he's going to use for his kingdom, wherever that is. And so for our students to grasp that truth has been fantastic. So I've been working with about 15, 20 students in this pilot program. And I have to share with you this one because this one still eats me up inside. We had a young lady who, she's like, Todd, Momentum Marketplace, this is actually the first time that I feel like my church has seen me. You could imagine what that would do to you if you heard that. And that's been eating me up inside. But it was encouraging to know that we were hitting something there.
Yeah, true.
That we're preparing them for something much bigger, right? That they're going to use who God's created them to be. So Marketplace has been a absolute goldmine for us. And then I think serving is a big deal within the ministry. And so we have a heartbeat and a goal for our students to own their ministry. So serve other areas of the church, absolutely, but also serve their peers, serve within the ministry that they're a part of. And I think that develops them and encourages them for what's next as well.
I'm really glad you mentioned the serving part, because I think far too often, like in when you just think general churches in America today, and you said it, like we're really good at doing like the bridges. We're going to pass, the student from children's ministry into middle school and into middle school, into high school and college. But like, there's not like those students just live in those spaces.
Right.
And there's not like other connection outside of those places. And so there's all kinds of research and study that shows that like that cross-generational relationships matters significantly. And yet serving in the church is one of the best ways to get your students to like rub shoulders with other adults, because you're running the tech booth, or you're greeting people in the lobby, and you're part of a training, and you're, like we used to have, like, there were certain points of time in our church where we would like try, Easter's coming, we need parking lot attendants. We need like all the, it's
they're
all
willing
hands
to
on
do
deck.
it. Yeah.
And they're willing to do
That's right.
And then you incorporate them into your team, and like the students learn like the other adults that are leading those things, and like the adults appreciate the students' help, and they get to laugh and joke around and like have a good time, and it's a common mission, and you win together, and then you celebrate. Like, that's a beautiful picture of those adults aren't serving in your youth ministry. Maybe they could.
Yeah.
But like, that's a wonderful partnership and connection in serving.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think it is a great indicator and marker of a healthy church. If you see young people serving in any area of the church, they might not do it well, but man, put them alongside of somebody who does it well to coach them up and to teach them,
Yeah.
I'll be honest, like I think for our church, we wouldn't be where we're at today if it wasn't for the young people of Grace Church.
Yep.
Straight up.
Yeah. And you guys worked really hard to find on-ramps and, let's be honest, off-ramps.
Mhm.
Like, what are the entry points and the exit points for students to serve in our ministries? And so they still need trained.
Yep.
Probably maybe more than some of your adults.
Hands down. Yes.
You've got to give them a track to run on, clear
Yeah.
expectations. Maybe it's a training or job description or something. But like, hey, we want you to serve in the nursery, and you get to hold babies, and you get to like love on these kids so that mom and dad can go to service and like have a cup of coffee and enjoy the word and be invested into. Like, give them that vision of what they're doing and how it adds value to somebody else. That's significant. That's meaningful.
And they'll run with you.
Yeah.
I have found that our students, they want to be a part of it. And when you give them that vision and the reason why, man, they'll run with you.
Yeah.
And you will still have to have those moments, you know, the arm around you. Hey, let's talk about what just happened, right? But man, they're hungry, they're teachable, and they're usually going to come with what we like to call a predetermined yes. They're like, "Yep, I'm in. Let me understand what that looks like."
Yeah. So Todd, what is there anything else that you guys are doing in your ministry just to be aware to help prepare students for life after high school?
Yeah, I would say the importance of mentorship. We have life group leaders who are investing into our upperclassmen, and so these would have been adults who have journeyed with our students for several years in seasons of their life, and so I think that is super important. But having someone, you mentioned like this intergenerational, worship within the church.
Yep.
This goes into play. If we could have adults serving back into student ministries, our students need adults. They want an example to follow. They want to know, hey, what is it going to be like to go into this next chapter of my life? Because they have no idea. And deep inside, as much as they hide it, they're terrified.
Right.
If they could have that mentorship. I was shared some stats. Actually, Momentum provided these for me. I thought that they were phenomenal. So this is students connecting to a Christian group or a church while they're in college. So these are statistics about that.
Yeah.
All right. So
just hang on before you share that. To clarify,
yes.
So Momentum offers what we call Pro,
Yes.
which is the other side of Momentum Marketplace.
Yes.
Right. So if anybody has any questions about this, reach out to me. Happy to talk about it. But Momentum Pro, we do cohorts.
Yes.
Which is a part of, we have cohorts for youth pastors and senior pastors. Right now, there's more coming, hopefully down the road. But if you're a youth pastor or a lead pastor and you'd like to be a part of Momentum Pro, where you can learn some of these very things, we network together, we resource together. It's equipping.
Highly encourage you to hop into that. This has been so good for my personal leadership development. But it has directly impacted my ministry. So thank you for.
I just want to give context.
Yep,
to that.
Thank you. So this was actually back in the fall when we met together, senior pastor cohort, and student ministry cohort leaders. And so these statistics here talk about students connecting to either a Christian group on their college campus or a church while they're in college. All right. So college students who had a home church, they were connected to their home church. 24% of them, all right, will connect to a church while they're in college if they go away, or a Christian group on campus. All right, 24%. Excuse me, that was 28%. So if you look here, how this increases, all right, if they had a home church mentor, they had an adult investing into them during their high school years, when they go off to college, 48% of them will connect to a church or a group on campus.
20%
it's a big jump. Yep.
Yeah.
So 28% to 48%.
Yeah.
Now, it jumps up again if this mentor stays in contact with them after high school. All right. So it jumps up to 57% of students will find a church to connect to or a Christian group on campus if this mentor not only invested into them their high school years, but also reached out and connected with them while they were in college.
And that really is meaning like, hey, how you doing? How can I pray for you?
Yep.
Just checking in.
Yep.
It's not necessarily like I drove to your campus.
Absolutely
we
not.
had lunch. It's just a check-in.
Send a care package.
Yeah.
Connect via text. Just make those connection points. So,
miss
so
you.
that's a big jump.
Seeing you around. What is there one more?
There's one more. All right. And this is crazy. All right. So if someone,
I hope you're sitting down if you're listening.
if someone from their home church tried to make a connection to them while they were at college, they are 66% more likely to connect to a church or a group on campus.
Wow. Like Todd, so we learned all of this from the Campus Crusade for Christ crew, the crew guy who came and shared. But like when you think about these numbers, so they did their research, right? This isn't like, you're not talking about like Grace Church and what this local church did. This is like a legit study that they've done. When I hear those numbers, I immediately think, as a leader and a parent and a youth pastor, I'm like, how do I get mentorship and relationships with my students, with adults, and who can we reach out to? Like, who are the kids that just left that we can reach out to and encourage and maybe strategize? Can we send them a care package? Can we send you a $5 Starbucks gift card? Like, just to say we're thinking about you and we miss you and praying for it. Like, oh my word.
Yeah.
That's crazy, those statistics.
And it seems easy, right? I mean, I think get in our heads that, they graduated, they moved on.
Right.
I'm like, no, we're not done investing. We're not done leading them.
Yeah.
And we see that it's now proven that, man, if we stay connected with them, they're actually more likely to stay connected to the church and to their faith.
And let's be honest, like it may on the surface sound like we're just saying like, hey, youth pastor, like you can increase the percentage. Like it's really not even about the numbers, but it's about like, these are students who they're going to go, like, think about the college, think about the context, think about the environments that they're going to go. Like we've talked before, like you want your students to be able to like know their identity and know their right relationship with God and to have those spiritual disciplines and to be able to like be strong and confident in their faith and in who they are in Christ. And so this is an additional way to stay connected to them, to be a support system, because they've lost their support system. How many times, like outside of mom and dad, how many adults are actually checking in, or even their friends? Like sometimes you're just bad at texting or calling or.
That's right. Well, because we know the reverse is also true. When you look at statistics and young adults going away from their faith, and it's exactly to your point there. It's like they lost their foundation. They lost the connection that they had, where they had people investing into them, pouring into them. And then it's like, well, good luck. You're restarting your life. And no, if we can blend and build that bridge well there, we see that they're going to be more likely to stick to their faith and stay connected to the church.
The other side of this, Todd, and we probably don't have a lot of time to go into this, but like, good. I know there's pieces of like our ministry that as you and I have shared, even in preparation for this episode, like there are things that like you can do in your student ministry when they're juniors and seniors. Our church back in Maryland, we used to take, the Sunday morning segment is super hard. And so we'd take like an 8-week segment for the students who call our church their home church. We would do like 8 weeks of, hey, this Sunday during Sunday school, we're going to bring in somebody to talk about finances and why credit card debt is real and how to avoid that. And, then we literally, like one Sunday we would build this. We did this for about 5 years. We'd go out to my car in the parking lot and we'd take the tire off and teach them how to change a tire.
That's good.
Like we'd teach them simple that we actually brought in my wife, who like was working in the business world, and she'd teach them like professional development. Here's why email is important. Here's how to manage your time and your calendar. Like, but some of those were based off of things that the students would ask us. We don't know how to do these things. Could you help us learn or think things through to prepare us? I think oftentimes if you just ask the students or help them think in those relational environments, what are the things that you're nervous about as you prepare to leave and go off into the real world? Like, help us. And they may identify them easier than you might. And so to be able to create things around that, I know you guys are doing a great job of that, of like, you've even talked about creating those relational environments where they have a place to feel safe, to be known, to be seen and accepted.
That's right.
That stuff is a big deal.
Yeah.
So final thoughts, Todd?
Yeah, I think that's good, Eric. And we want to know where they're at. And so don't shy away from the conversation. Like, what does the next season, like, how do you feel about it?
Right.
Right? They might not be able to articulate it. They might not be able to verbalize it, but they've got a lot going on in there. And so if you create that safe place for them to talk with you, they're going to be the ones to reveal what they need.
Yeah.
We can't just like aim at this target that's moving and try to hit it. Like they're going to be able to hone in. So I loved what you said, that those practical life skill things are super important because some of them might have had those practices, but some may not.
Right.
And so I think if there is a sampling of a little bit of everything that they can get experience in, I think is important. So,
and maybe that's something that you just build into those mentoring relationships. Yeah. Maybe it's something you build into your small groups. Maybe, the sky's the limit on all that. So think it through. Momentum is here to be a resource to you. So if you're listening to this conversation and you're like, man, I'd love to like download that a little bit more. We're happy to provide resources in any of this. So reach out to us. So thank you so much, Todd, for being a part of this conversation. And to our listeners and our viewers, thanks so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you haven't already, please rate and review this episode wherever you're listening. That does help other people know about this. And maybe you just need to like send this episode to somebody who's wrestling with this. Maybe send it to your youth pastor or friend who this would add value to them. So that'll do it for today's episode. Thanks again.
Well, guys, I think that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. We'd be really honored if you went ahead and subscribed to the podcast, and that way you can just kind of stay up to date with the episodes that we're posting in the future. To learn more about Momentum Ministry Partners and our many other resources, please be sure to follow us on social media at Momentum Ministry Partners, or check out our website, www.buildmomentum.org.